when you first started to practice like silent prayer, what was that like? Because I feel like
Yeah.
just going to silence can be kind of scary, all the thoughts coming.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's totally new. Yeah, I think when I first started, well, at first, what was difficult for me is I was like, I'm not sure anything's happening. I think there can be a tendency with silent prayer to expect this sort of like grand spiritual experience, like the heavens opened up, I heard the voice of God. And it was sort of like, I feel like I just sat there. Like I'm not even
Hmm.
sure that actually did anything. I'm not, is that supposed to be a spiritual experience? Because I'm not sure it was. But I think in time, silence has become much more of a rich experience to me, which is not to say that every time I have silent prayer, I leave, you know, like full of joy and love and worship. Like that, that's not real. Like there's certainly times where I'm like, well, okay, that's just a practice of being quiet. And I don't know if really I didn't have some big revelation. But I do think more, I mean, I think I often do now have particular emotions bubble up that I can give to God, or particular insight, or even nothing that I'm consciously aware of, but have a deeper sense of rest in Jesus after a time of silence. So, the things that I would say with starting for me that were really important were number one, having a short amount of time, like literally, like I would set the timer for 5 minutes and just try to sit for 5 minutes in silence. Um, if thoughts and worries and compulsive kind of thoughts show up, which is very common, to try to let them go. The image is if you're sitting on this on the bank of a river, that's kind of your
Hmm.
conscious thoughts. And if you see a boat come by, you let it go by. Like you
Hmm.
don't freak out and try to stop it or try to, you know, push it away, but you also don't like jump on the boat and try to like obsess on it. So that's the boats in this scenario are your thoughts. Like just let thoughts come and go is the point. If it's something it's very helpful for me to have a journal in case I'm like, oh, I forgot, I have to, return that email, or I have to, so that I can just literally write it down and let it go, so it doesn't become me making a grocery list in my head.
Hmm.
But uh, so sometimes I'll write things down, but often just trying to let things go. And then letting the time be what it is. I mean, for me, a lot of times, because I don't have as much silence as I could, what comes up is a lot of grief or anger or emotion or confusion about a conversation I had. And so being able to go to God with that. The other thing that's really helpful is having a particular thing you're sort of meditating on with silence. So, natural beauty, of course, helps everyone. So if you can be in a beautiful place, this is why it's actually been really, really helpful for me for when Catholic churches often keep their doors open, so you can go. I'm not Catholic, but Protestant churches often don't do this. But particularly during COVID, a church down the street still is open as long as you're wearing a mask, which has been really helpful, just to have a silent space, because there's very little silent space, especially those of us who have children at home without kids going to school and that sort of thing. That's just been really helpful. So all that to say, if you can be in a beautiful place, that's helpful. If not, that's fine. But it can help to have an icon or light a candle or have something kind of visually to focus on. But also the Psalms help with silence, because you can take a little bit, a phrase that strikes you from a Psalm, and kind of, so for you, O Lord, my soul waits in silence. That's a Psalm. So you can start for, or for you, and then pause for maybe a minute. Oh Lord, and then pause for maybe a minute. Something to kind of focus your brain on, but then just leave silence. So that's something you can do. Or, I mean, really at the beginning, I started silent prayer because I was on social media so much that I felt like I was constantly ingesting conversation. And so really my practice began with just getting used to not filling time. Like literally just getting used to not, in that 15 seconds you have or at the stoplight or whatever, checking your smartphone or checking my email. So silence for me began with just like getting comfortable with silence. So it was really mostly just sitting there at first for me.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out this video clip from the Dogato podcast. To get more videos like this, simply subscribe here on YouTube. You can also download the full episode of each show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or your favorite podcast player. Take care.